Hello, one and all. This is Office Hours, where we've been answering your media and tech-related production questions every single day since March 25th, 2020. Jason Bache, out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, well transplanted for a moment to Chicago, is our reader today. Jason, what do we got?
First one comes in from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. He says, any insight on the API specification aimed at simplifying the monetization of live streaming events? And he includes the link.
I don't know if...
Wait a second. I'm not seeing that.
I think you might be on a different page.
I'm seeing a Mike Edwards question here.
I was like, I wasn't ready for that one.
I was about to say, okay, Mike Edwards in Brooklyn, New York asks, morning, everyone. Is the panel familiar with the Streambox family of encoders and decoders? What's your experience with them?
And now that we're back in place, Alex Lindsay is going to help you out here. Alex?
Yeah, this is the Streambox, and so they make a series of hardware and cloud solutions. I have only used them tangentially. We've tested them; they went fine, and it wasn't there wasn't a. I don't have enough strong opinion about them because I haven't used them enough to do it. It just hasn't been. A lot of times there's a lot of encoders out there. I believe they do both. They do higher bit rates as well, so that you can do HDR style streams as well. So I think they look like pretty good boxes, but haven't had the experience to really use them on a job until we use them on a show. I just don't know.
There you go, Mike. Thank you for the question. Next question.
Next one comes in from Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri. If you regularly use volunteers, do you ever thank them tangibly with something like GrubHub certificates, comp future event tickets, inexpensive banquets, pizza, sandwiches, or anything else?
Yeah, that's it. Ronnie Hofsoy is going to start us off here. Ronnie?
Yeah, so those times we use extras or freelancers, we tend to kind of give them a good salary, first and foremost. There's a reputation in the area. If you pay your extras and freelancers kind of good money, you will have a good reputation. And we've never had freelancers say no to us, so we are in the belief that we are paying them good. And then, of course, after everything is over, even if it's a late night or a Sunday, we tend to grab something good to eat. Not fancy restaurants or that type of stuff, but kind of medium, not fast food, but a little bit better than fast food. And sometimes it's even pizza.
There you go. Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, there's kind of a dichotomy here when we talk about pay and hiring people and volunteers, is that a lot of the jobs that I do are pretty high end jobs, and very rarely do we hire someone with less than 10 years of experience, oftentimes less than 20 years of experience, and so there's not a lot of ways to get in. So I look at volunteer opportunities as the opportunity for let's do something that I may not be, if you applied for it, I may not hire you for that. And in some cases, there are people who, with lots of experience, who volunteer on some of the stuff that I work on because we're doing something cool or something new. So but we're experimenting with something. It's not. And one big rule that I have is that I don't have people volunteer on something that I'm making money on. So that's the big thing. So I don't use volunteers for profitable things. I set up volunteer opportunities, and I volunteer on other opportunities as a way to kind of learn to figure things out. I'm volunteering on stuff all the time. I think I've volunteered on some kind of project almost every week for the last 35 years. So I'm constantly, and if you're wondering, are we volunteering right now? The answer is yes. So I can say, so I do it 4 to 5 times a year because we're volunteering our time here to answer your questions. So I'm volunteering all the time. And I think that when I have volunteers, though, you do want to make sure, the problem really is that I can't, oftentimes the budget is I can't afford to, and that's taking away from us doing whatever the cool thing is to do. What I do pay attention to is sometimes if we can get the comping the future tickets or something like that, if people want to volunteer to work on something, we can get folks, if we can get something for them, that's great. The other thing that I look at is we definitely try to feed the crew. So not try, but we feed the crew. Occasionally, like the first time we go to a new venue, sometimes if it's out in the middle of nowhere, it ends up being pizza or something that I found nearby. Usually I evolve past that pretty quickly. Pizza is I couldn't find something else quickly to do this with. thing. But with GrubHub and DoorDash, we've gotten pretty good at being able to order stuff from other places. You just have to coordinate a little bit for it to be delivered and try to. And so the one budget that I definitely have is once I know what the head count is of what we're going to get for food. And usually if I've worked a certain space more than a couple times, food gets a lot better because I kind of worry about that. But I think that's the main thing. I was just working on there's a general rule in both work and in volunteering is to feed the crew, and try to feed them well. And I've worked on jobs that I volunteered for that are from people who came out of film, and they may not pay you, but they've got a full catering truck there, making sure that everyone's fed. I think I was working on a job over the weekend, and best catering ever. And I don't mean just it was just the most organized. It was it had something for everybody. It was 400 people working on the project, but it was really well designed. So people pay a lot of attention to the food.
From the top of the budget shows that I've worked on down to the very bottom, including those student volunteer things where everybody is broke who's working on the crew, you still have to take a step. If there's nothing else you can do but buy a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and a jar of jelly, do that. Do not ask people to come out, because we get involved in these things and we're out there sometimes for hours and hours. You have to have something. Even if I was literally down to my last $20 bill, I would spend that on food for the crew for that, because you're asking people to do a lot of work and you've got to give them something. Now, is that appropriate? Not always. Everybody has to be at the same level of just beginning dead broke to make that possible, but you have to make the effort. I firmly believe in this. I don't think I've ever been on a set where there wasn't something. And on the highest end sets, working on things for multi-billion-dollar companies, they pay a lot of attention to this. There's always somebody coming around, even if you're on tight schedules, taking lunch orders or figuring out how to do that and delivering food into the crew, because it's just not done to ask people to work this much and not at least provide them some sustenance while you're on set. Next question.
Here it is. Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, any insight on an API specification aimed at simplifying the monetization of live streaming events, and includes a link from TV Technology?
Alex Lindsay's going to address this. Alex?
Yeah, it's just what they're talking about is an API that's going to make it easier to insert ads and get more data on the live viewers. And so this is the data is important if you're running ads. And, I think most of what live streaming is outside of standard sports. So those sports have their own advertising systems and so on and so forth. But in many live streaming platforms, it is difficult to get that information. And so a lot of people rely on subscription-based content. And so, and I think that from the smallest streams to the largest ones, there's an opportunity for ad insertion. The hard part with live events is figuring that out. Where do you put the ads? When do I trigger put ad here? And so a lot of the APIs, or what they're working on right now, is to find ways to make that better.
Yeah, this is something, as this has grown, it's been amazing to me how many platforms for the monetization of clicks one way or another have developed, because everybody understands with all the eyeballs that have flooded to digital content online, it'd be great if you could even get 10 cents for a click or a penny for a click, provided that things get distributed far enough and you have interesting enough content. So, between bank connections and credit card connections and PayPal connections, there's just more ways to monetize content than has ever been there before. So I think everybody should be thinking about that. If you want to sustain making content one way or another, I don't think you can actually do it unless you find some way to get some income stream coming in, even if it's extremely modest. If not, there's just so much work involved in this stuff that you kind of fall away from doing it consistently and well unless you get some kind of compensation for it. So take that for what you will. Next question.
Jeff Francis in Columbia, South Carolina asks, how can I achieve the following? On a MacBook Pro second display via HDMI output, I want a full screen presentation with a picture-in-picture window of a live web page timer, even if the browser is not in the foreground app. Is there a way to do this using Keynote Live Video?
You get some results here. Jason Bache is going to start us off. Jason?
My first thought is that you can do this with a live web page and H2R graphics cloud. I think that that's most of the way there, and how you're going to need to customize it is going to depend. You think we're going to need a little bit more detail to be sure about that.
And I'm sure Alex has done this a lot, so he'll help you out here.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to approach this. I don't know if the Keynote live video will give you what you need, because I don't know if you'll be able to do the live page. Now, also, the question is that a timer? Can you pre-render the timer, or does it need to be something that's there? But doing it inside of Keynote, you may not find that you have enough tools. There's a couple different ways that I'd approach this. Probably looking at something like memolive. Memolive is going to be able to let you bring in a live page, bring in a video, bring in your presentation, bring in a picture. You can composite that page any way you want. And one of the big advantages there is, and you can then send that out as a virtual camera. One of the advantages of that is that you will be able to animate and design the page to be whatever you'd like it to be. So there's a lot of options there. I think Ecamm might be able to do it as well. I'm not as familiar with Ecamm as far as the solutions go. The way that I do it for this kind of thing is with an Atem. So I have multiple computers going into my Atem Mini Extreme, and the way I do that and how I have it set up is that I have my, I have my camera, but then my next things are I have an Apple TV, so I can share my iPad or my iPhone. I have one computer that's dedicated to graphics, my overlay graphics, one that's dedicated to my presentations, Keynote, one that's dedicated to web pages, one that's dedicated to apps. They're little Mac Minis. So instead of buying one big laptop, I've got these little $600 Mac Minis, and you could M1 with 8 gigs. They're not powerful Mac Minis, but each one of them has a role. And then I've got a KVM that runs all of that, and they all feed into it. And what the advantage of that is that number one is I don't have to worry about whether the virtual camera works or whether something else works. All of my interface to the computer is all hardware, so that it means that if I jump into Teams or Zoom or whatever I'm going to jump into, all of this works, right? And then the other thing is that now I can cut between all those things while I'm talking, and I can just seamlessly go, and now I'm going to show you this, and now I'm going to show you this, and I can be going in and out of my presentation, in and out of full screen graphics. And by the way, when you can cut in and out of full screen graphics, you will stop using pips. The pips don't really help as much as we think they do from the data that we have from doing research. So I can cut back and forth between all of those things. I can comp some of like when I do presentations, the presentation is actually sitting on top of me. And what's happening is when you see it full screen, it means that I made sure that there was no black. I'm literally just using LumaKey. And then I have things that can appear above me while I'm talking in little graphics and everything else that are built into the presentation. Because if I go with pure black on the background of the presentation, it just keys over me. So there's a lot of things that I can do with that would be hard to do any other way. But I would say the two ways that I would approach it is probably memolive if I was doing software, or an Atem switcher if I was doing hardware.
Don't forget. Oh, I'm sorry. Ronnie wanted to get in on this. Ronnie?
Yes, I've done this exact thing using Memo. And we can also, what is a cool feature in Memo nowadays is that you can utilize different types. You can kind of build up different types of super sources using the switchers, the switcher layers. And then on top of that switcher layer, you can add a siphon sender. So you grab that siphon and send that siphon output kind of thing to another input in the same memolive instance. Then you can route that input as a separate HDMI output, and you can create it however you would like to do that. So that is kind of a very powerful. It's kind of having super sourcing capabilities inside the same machine. You just utilize the siphon sender inside that Mac. So the other way you're asking if you can do this in a Keynote using the live video, the problem is you need to have, so this is the other way to do it, you need to have some way of getting that camera into the Keynote presentation. So you need some kind of virtual camera or maybe a NDI virtual camera, and then you need an application on the same machine that is actually creating that timer window, possibly as a NDI feed inside the same machine, and then you can pick that up again with a virtual NDI camera and put that in as a video source into the Keynote. If I would do it that way, in my mind, it's more like a hack. It probably will work, but I would go the memolive route, or as Alex said, the Atem physical interface route.
Don't forget, this is a Q&A show, which means if you want to put questions in, you are most welcome to. We encourage that. You simply go to Makana, that's our live Q&A system. Go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email. And once you kind of follow the breadcrumb trail in there, you can sign up and not only ask questions, but vote on those questions, which is how we determine what comes first and what we spend the most time on. officehours.global/join. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, what is the best mobile 19-inch rack on heavy-duty wheels for 1U, 2U, and 3U servers that is under 4 feet tall and spec pull-out keyboard, monitor, and trackpad?
Rack building. Jason Bass is going to start us out. Jason?
We're not going to get one SKU for all of those requirements. So I will just choose the one that I want and answer it that way. I think that this is a great rack. And is it portable? Sure. Does it have caster wheels? Yes. Is it portable in a way that I would put it on a plane? Well, no, of course not. But it comes together extremely quickly. This is the Ubiquiti toolless mini rack, and it really does come up and come together in just a few minutes. And it does have the ability, you can add the pullouts that you need. So like, the racks are a little bit not spec, but you can add the rails that you need to be able to pull out and add any shelf that you need.
Alex Lindsay.
And David Brady recommends Innovative, which is another manufacturer of them. I'm just trying to pull the website up. They make a lot of different ways of racking things. So if you're trying to move things around, here you have you can see even have racks attached to poles. So they make a lot of different. It's kind of more of a modular design. What you want in your racks or things that you can move around. So Innovative. They make a lot of great tools for on-set being able to mount a bunch of things to make that work.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York asks, why Zoom hybrid events? With Zoom hybrid events, what video do you typically send far side talent so they can feel as connected as possible to the folks in the room?
Ronnie Hofsoy, what's your choice?
It depends. It's a little bit about. So normally we feed the close-up of the person speaking, if this is on a stage or similar. I could also be tempted to send the audience image. So we normally have 4 or 5 cameras in these types of situations. And of course, sometimes you need to send the presentation going into if they have some presentation or keynotes going on the big screen. Other times we send the gallery view. So we make a gallery view probably using tiles, or we use something like memolive to create a gallery that is kind of cool, and send that back just to make them have something to look at, so that they can pin that themselves if they like. But normally what we do, we send multiple feeds into the Zoom meeting. We send the presentation as a singular feed. We send the person speaking as we do the switching inside the venue, and we also include a kind of camera from the audience and the audience perspective to watch the whole thing. So it depends really about the cost of the production and what the producer or the owner of the project want us to do. But if this is a small production, we just send the program out that is going out to the stream as well.
Alex.
Yeah, if the person is at their home coming in on their laptop, we'll typically just try to send them an audience camera that they can look at. If we send them a program, we send program mix with a video mix minus, which is very complicated. But we can do that. And so we're sending them back cuts, but without themselves, because we don't want to see if they see themselves in Zoom, they'll see a return that's much slower. And so it's very confusing for someone who's not used to looking at it. And so what we try to do when we have budget and we're in a studio, so a lot of times I get brought in to do high-end, so what happens is if you think about the cost for a CEO to go to, let's say, Singapore or Morocco or whatever, and let's say a Fortune 10 CEO, the cost of your entourage plus you going to that for a couple days is millions of dollars. Like it's literally, you want to send a top level CEO there is going to cost $1 million because it's their security, it's their people, it's the advanced team, it's a whole bunch of things. And so as a result, a lot of them have gotten into the habit of like, how do I do a really high quality point to point? And so we get brought in to do these point to points, and at that point we have budget because they're we're way cheaper than what they were going to do otherwise. And so sometimes we're doing it through Zoom, sometimes or Meet or satellite or other things like that to get it back in there. And one of the things that we think about there, first thing is that a lot of times they don't want to look. They want to look like they're coming in from their office. But they don't want us to actually shoot from their office. And so one of the things we've gotten into the habit of is that the screen behind them is we take a picture somewhere that looks like their office or looks like they're at their headquarters or somewhere there. We make sure that the focal length is exactly the same as the camera we're shooting them with, and we actually focus it on where it would be for them, so it's a little out of focus, and it has the right vanishing points for their background. We then put that on a 75-inch screen TV or larger, and we put it behind them, and then we can put it anywhere. They can be wherever they need. Oftentimes we build next to them or something like that. And then so if you imagine the screen's there, they're here. We usually have some lights, and then what we do is you have the camera here, and we have usually a teleprompter, so that we can give them whatever they want to talk, they want to see, or usually that is a teleprompter. Now, if you look at it from the front, and here's the teleprompter with the camera, and we don't always use a teleprompter, and here's why. If they look straight ahead in a theater, in a staged environment, they're actually looking over everybody's heads. So sometimes, a lot of times, depending on the structure. So if they are in a stadium style seating that goes up, we have them look into the teleprompter. But we ask, like, is everyone going to be on the floor? And so if it's a flat floor, we put the camera here, and then we put the audience here. And we found this by accident. When they look down and their screen is high and the audience is on the floor, it looks like they're looking right at them. Like it is like just straight at them. It's really, because otherwise it looks like they're looking over them and they're not connected. So that they look down just a little and it looks like they're looking at the audience. So we've learned to not use teleprompters when they're in a flat space. Now, the other thing we do is a lot of times they're going to talk to someone on the stage. We put the audience here, and then we put another stage window pointed at them here. And the reason we do that is so that when they go to look at we give them that separate thing. When they want to go look at the stage, they'll go like this. They'll look over, and we get that monitor, and we literally will have someone say, when does it look like we're looking at the stage? And sometimes the monitor is over here like this. Like we just move the monitor around to get their eye line so that when they want to look at the stage, they turn, and it looks like, so now it looks like they're looking at the audience, and then it looks like they're looking at the stage. It's a really fun hack, to get them to get their eye lines to work. But eye lines make, in my opinion, when you're doing high level events, eye lines are really cool to play with that make it feel like, then you have people, there's kind of a surprise and delight from the audience of feeling like that person can see them, and so that's how we kind of approach that. But usually that means we're sending multiple feeds back.
Don't forget, we have special shows. Extra Hours happens on Monday, happened last night, and also on Thursday. David Paskin hosts a show here on Office Hours, so check him out, check the website, and enjoy some more extension of Office Hours. Next question.
Richard Wells in Tacoma, Washington asks, when somebody is learning to transition calling shows and operation roles from physical and live events to cloud-based production, any ideas or suggested resources? Gratitude.
Alex?
My first thing would be to look at volunteering for Office Hours. We do a cloud operation every day. So, it's not going to be necessarily all the same tools that you're using, but I would take a look at, I'm a very operational person. Like, if you want to learn to do something, go do it. I don't care about what people's certifications are. I don't look at their papers. I don't, it just doesn't matter to me. I don't find, I have to admit, I don't find classes particularly useful. Like I just do things and then learn them. And we're a pretty safe place to learn. So I would recommend thinking about that. You also meet a lot of people that are in cloud production. There's people in this organization and take on, more basic roles, helping those things, and you'll start to see it. So I would start with our show, but I would look at other shows. The other thing that I would, do is start to figure out where can I do some small virtual shows and what I usually do is I volunteer for nonprofits and small businesses and so on and so forth, mostly nonprofits, to figure out what, that way, if it doesn't work out, they can get a full refund. So anyway, so you try to figure, you go through it, but obviously working with us, you'll kind of understand some of the process. But I don't know of a lot of training that I would necessarily recommend in this area other than doing it. And you have to decide. But again, there's lots of people here that are doing cloud production, and getting into a support role that may not pay very much is going to give you exposure to the process, and then you can slowly move up as you prove useful, which I'm sure you will.
Pretty much in all the productions, I'm going to echo what Alex has said. Reading about it, learning about it, going to classes about it, none of that prepared me for actually doing it. The only thing that prepares you for actually doing it is doing it. You have to get into the mode, and even after you've been in something close to what you're trying to switch into, it takes a while to switch over because just every task is unique. So I 100% support what he says. You just got to do the job. You want to call a show, you got to start calling shows somewhere. If nothing else, make them up and get them and run them, and so you can call them. Yeah, go ahead.
I will say that I find volunteering a lot less expensive and a lot more effective than taking classes.
Yeah, you're doing the real job.
When you're taking classes, you're volunteering and then you're donating as well, and then you might get something out of it. Whereas just get out there and help other people with what you're trying to learn.
Next question.
Fred Eric Eckert in Bad Arnalb, Germany writes, is Universe still in use in the office hours pipeline? What's your thought on the purchase of Universe by Thomann?
Alex?
We are still using Universe, and we are. I think that the Thomann makes total sense. I think anytime a big company buys a small company, you worry that it's going to devolve into something, or they're not going to pay attention anymore. But there's two sides of that. One is there's a chance that it won't do well. There's another chance that they now have more resources. So I think that we saw that with the purchase of Liminal by Zoom. Is there's always worried that it'll get watered down, but what Liminal was given was an enormous number of resources to do a lot of things that they would never have done on their own. I think we're going to hope that this mirrors that. Thomann is a massive German retailer, and I think that what they're looking for is how do we take all the stuff that we're doing, and they even build a lot of their own hardware, and how do we use something that can have software that's going to drive all of those things. And so I think it's a great purchase for everyone. So.
Yeah, I reflect that too. Sometimes we see companies buy smaller companies and they catch and kill. They're just trying to eliminate competition from the marketplace, and that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is exactly what Alex just articulated, which is the company who did something that you love gets more resources and can do it better and faster, and that's absolutely cool. Next question.
James Foslian in Minneapolis, Minnesota asks, with Final Cut Pro, can you easily scrub private information in metadata, or do you need to create compressor droplets shooting on my iPhone and don't want location?
Alex.
I think if you go through Final Cut, you're going to lose the location. Final Cut doesn't keep that metadata. So if you open up the file and then re-render it, it's going to get rid of it. I don't know of an app that I don't know of an app that does the that will remove the private information. I know there are apps that do it. I just don't know what they are.
Jason?
So if you use the share sheet to export things from the iPhone instead of plugging it in and trying to drag it in and over, there's a tiny little set of the little switches that you'll see when the share sheet comes up. If you tap that, it will say include or don't include location. From there, you're completely set, and it doesn't matter what you do afterwards.
Yeah, the share functions in Final Cut are very sophisticated, and you can decide. Final Cut is great. It was built on a platform to honor every type of metadata potentially coming in if the user does it correctly. In other words, if you import your video files or your still photos with metadata and don't just drag and drop the actual asset without looking at the whole volume, it'll bring that into Final Cut. It will allow you to manipulate, use, benefit from all that metadata. And then on the share side, it will allow you to determine what you want to have export with your files and what you don't want to. So just do some searching on metadata in Final Cut, and you'll find videos on YouTube and things like that that explain the process of doing that. But the answer is, yeah, you can absolutely veil those kind of things, and there are a lot of easy ways to do it. Next question.
Paul Wall, who's from Austin, Texas, with a philosophical, what is the fundamental purpose of equalization in audio mixing?
Oh, Ronnie Hofsoy is going to take a stab at this big topic.
Yeah, this topic is really, really big, wide, deep, and it's almost impossible to just answer it in an easy way. It could take a couple of days. But fundamentally, audio consists of frequencies. Frequencies starts in the lower end with bass frequencies, low, the really cozy ones. And then it moves up through the annoying ones to the higher ones, up to the frequency that is so high you can't even hear them, though some hi-fi people make us believe that they can hear them. And it's kind of different types of tools we use for this. And also equalizations or EQs are used on different places depending on what you're trying to do. This is a picture from my own mixer where my microphone is selected here. And as you can see, I have added, this is a parametric equalizer. So this is not the ones where you have 32 bands and can just choose which one. This is more like a rounded off. And this is used to make my audio being a little bit more formed for the use I need this voice to be. And as you can see, I have a little bit boost in the lower end because I sit a little bit further from the microphone. And if I'm really close to it, you will hear the proximity effect. That if I was sitting very close, I would do the opposite. I would subtract some of the lower end energy from the signal and make sure that the audio comes out good. So basically, it is about changing how the sound from the lower to the upper is sounding. And you change the incoming sound to something that is going out of the equalizer. And that is kind of the easiest way to say it. And you can use this, as I mentioned, different places inside your audio pipeline. For instance, if I have a bass drum on stage, I would probably try to equalize that so I only hear the lower end frequency. So I can, of course, use a filter for that, and I would probably be using both a filter to get rid of everything above a certain frequency, but I will also use an equalization to make sure I have the right tonal feeling of that bass drum and make sure that I get the sound I need from that bass drum. And in a kind of more producer where you're producing music, you tend to use equalization as a very important tool in the mastering process where you need to make room for, let's say, a synthesizer with a sweeping sound, and you need to make sure that some other instruments are taken down or removed a little bit so that it makes room for other instruments to be audible in the final product. So equalization is a very important tool, and if you're doing audio and you don't know what EQ is, you better start learning as soon as possible. But that is a really important tool.
Alex Lindsay.
Now, someone once asked me, and I just said equalization is volume control for specific frequencies.
Yeah, I think that's a great shorthand. It can be complicated and it can be simple. Next question.
Fred Eric Eckert in Bad Herrenalb, Germany asks, is there a release date for the Telestrator app by Alex?
How much time do you have, Alex? There we go. All right. If you're not watching, Alex has just drawn on the screen
soon
the word soon with three exclamation points.
We're at this point. It's just a function of getting some of the preferences fixed and also just figuring out how what we're gonna charge for it. So it's all working great. And so we're definitely by the end of the year. It's in between all the other things that we're all working on. As Nikki said, soon TM. If you want to, I always recommend. I mean, if you want to beta test it, you can reach out to me in Discord. If you don't know how to get to Discord, you can go to officehours.global/join. But if you reach out to me on Discord, you can I can send you a beta and you can play with it.
Next question.
Richard Wells in Tacoma, Washington asks, is anyone seeing interesting uses of TouchDesigner in the wild?
Alex? Yeah, TouchDesigner, it's a little like Isadora in the sense that it's a nodal tree that you build a bunch of, it's got a bunch of rendering built into it. And it's used for a lot of different things, interactive events and so on and so forth. The thing that I see it mostly used for is a lot of stuff that we do around live streaming of 3D. So there's a lot of tools that TouchDesigner has that a lot of people use that we're able to affect things like interaxial distance between the cameras, toe in, a lot of other things there that we have that it's been kind of that almost everybody I know that's doing 16:9 live and even 180 live, almost all of them are using the TouchDesigner tools to do that.
Don't forget, if you have questions you want to put into the show queue as quickly as possible, you can use askofficehours.global. Type that into your web browser and askofficehours.global, which is right up there at the top of that little QR code I just popped up on the screen. Or you can shoot the QR code with your phone. It'll do the same thing. Get you to askofficehours.global, and that will let you put a question kind of directly into the queue. It is a slightly different process than the Mukana process, but it works really quickly. And somebody will take a look in the back end, and if everything fits, we'll get it into the show as fast as possible. Next question.
Michael Smith in Silverado, California asks, Alex, can you ballpark a figure on the cost of the infrastructure at Golden Gate Polo Field? Video, lights, audio, etc.
Oh, Alex, what did you find in Golden Gate Park?
I can tell you that I can give you a really precise number for this, actually. I did some research and I looked at it, and it turns out that it's all the money.
All the money. That's exactly however much money you can get.
Survey says all the money.
All the money. Yeah. So this is a shot from the actually of the stage. It's just I sent it to Tlalak, and he was like, universes on universes, upon universes. And so this is just the main stage. There'll be more stages for outside lands. This was basically right before the Dead and Company show, and so the people were just coming in, and so that I can't tell you exactly. It's millions and millions and millions of dollars. You got to remember that just for the Dead and Company show, I think it was, I don't actually know what the number was of how many people came, but it was many. I mean, there were numbers anywhere. I heard numbers between 30,000 and some, more. Let's just say 30,000, and they all paid. The base cost was $350. So if you take 30,000 and multiply that to 300, that's just the Dead and Company income, and that's not all the booths that are on the side and the special VIP that costs a bunch of extra money, and all the other things that are there. So my guess is that it's most likely in the tens of millions of dollars. I mean, I would say that they're generating hundreds of, over, like it's an enormous amount of money that's flowing through these festivals. And it's amazing. The technology has gotten just incredibly good to manage a lot of this stuff. So they were using a program, a system called FrontGate that lets you manage access to everywhere. And so there's no, the wristbands even have RFIDs in them. So there's just like these big kiosks. You just walk up and put your key, you put your tag against it, and it tells you whether you're allowed to go in. And I could go most places, but I did find a place where I clicked it and it was red. And then you have to have the walk of shame. You're in front of a bunch of people, and the kiosk said no, you can't go there. And you're like, I could go everywhere, I thought. And evidently there's a pass above mine called All Access. So I had most access. So anyway, I don't know exactly what the cost would be, but it's a lot. Like I estimated there was probably at least 400 people minimum working on the project that I was on. The scale of it was incredible. And then outside lenses this weekend.
I was talking to Alex beforehand. My niece, actually my brother for many years, worked on Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, knew all those people. And then my niece has been doing that for years. And the reason that show takes place over the course of those 4 days is that the person who was behind it was a billionaire. And he loved bluegrass. And he decided that one of the things he wanted to do was fund this and put in an endowment that'll keep it going for a long time. But these shows are not cheap. And if you're thinking, well, I can do something like that, unless you're at the high end of the business, you really cannot imagine how much it costs and how much work it takes.
And the scale is different between like a Dead & Company / Outside Lands and Hardly Strictly, because Hardly Strictly is free. And this one is not. There's just more money, and so there's just an incredible amount of infrastructure that goes into it. By the way, I would recommend, if you like bluegrass, to come to Hardly Strictly if you're in the Bay Area or even not. The money may not last forever. You should. The rumor is that not forever is coming up. So I would highly recommend checking it out.
It's been interesting, though, to see how they virtualized it. And I know Sarah went out on tours to various places to shoot people like Emmylou Harris for inserts for the show. So they've been doing an interesting thing with virtualizing the show.
They're working on basically they're doing a lot of work on figuring out how to make it more sustainable. Because they didn't have to for a long time. But the good news is they built a great infrastructure of people who just got to go. That would have never gone. It's a really incredible festival.
Yeah, it's nice because you have the old, serious players, including the old timers, Doc Watson and those people who, when they were alive, who would come and do this because they were just there to support bluegrass as an art form. And then you'd get the new people coming up, and they always had stages for the new bands who were coming up. Practicing that, and it was just fun that way.
I work at a lot of festivals, and I will say that Golden Gate's a really nice place to work because it's not very hot. When I work on Coachella, you just feel like you've been beaten. Even in April, it's so hot and so dry and so dusty, and so
freshly hit by a bus feeling.
You just have this crazy. I'm not a bit. I kind of stopped. I still work in Coachella at times, but I try to just stay on jobs that are indoor or offsite. I don't really want to work at the location anymore because I just feel like I'm beaten. When I'm done, I was remarkably surprised over the last 4 days. That's why I was gone, by the way, folks. I was at Golden Gate. Is that it was a high of 72 degrees.
I know.
and so you're walking around. I was like, this is awesome. Doing this works great.
We were talking about that in the Comic-Con things. People keep saying it's too big. We need to go to Las Vegas or something. And everybody's going, no! I can't imagine being outside in a costume in Las Vegas in July. That just does not make any sense at all. So, next question.
Fred Eric Eckert in Bad Arnolf, Germany asks, comparing hardware switchers and software switchers regarding latency, is there a noticeable difference between using an Atem and memolive as a switcher for Zoom meetings?
And Ronnie Hofsway is going to help us out here. Ronnie?
So there are two things. If you're going to have a camera on stage in the venue, going to the display in the venue, I would say you need to use hardware switchers. And typically, Atem will have kind of 1 to 2 frames, depending on what type and product, etc. And you can reduce that a little bit, or the chance of it having to go to 2 frames or 3 frames, by gen-locking all the cameras, which is expensive because you need special cameras that has the rep sync in. Another thing to be aware of is the latency that is in the distribution. So if you're going to this distributor, you're going into a rack inside the venue or the hotel or wherever, and then you're going to more distributors, which is converting and maybe scaling the signal before it hits the projector, which then would like to have another type of signal, which then scales it again. You can absolutely see a lot of latency just in the distribution after you output from your own Atem. So it's not only the problem in the Atem and in the camera chain, it could also be something coming in after your Atem. And compare this to software. Software will just add a lot more latency depending on the hardware and the computing power and the software solution. memolive is kind of adding some frames depending on what you're doing. If you're doing advanced stuff in memolive, the buffer will increase and the latency will be even longer. And then to your kind of question, because you are asking if you're producing a Zoom production. And the big question then is, if you're just having remote guests coming in from Zoom that you would like to present on the displays, there is no problem using only software. You will, of course, have some latency going from the Zoom guest that is sitting in another part of the world out to the display, but the people sitting in the venue doesn't know that. They don't know when that person on the other side of the world started talking. So the problem is when you have a physical attendee talking in the venue and showing that on the display, not the remote person. Then there is a big problem if you're going to return something to the Zoom meeting. We had a situation where people were doing stuff with the Zoom attendees, like we do here in office hours, and then did something in the software and returned the picture, the kind of the mixed picture, the program out, back to the Zoom meeting and had a latency on the audio. And you should never return audio from Zoom back to the same Zoom room. Then you have to use two different Zoom rooms or breakout rooms or whatever. You never return the audio back that you have processed locally on-prem. I think that is kind of the gist of it. If you have, kind of to sum it up, if you have people in the venue and you need them to be on screen, use hardware. If you just have remote contenders coming digitally, you can surely use software for that.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, and generally you're going to find that as to shorten what Ronnie said, was an incredible explanation of it. I would just say that the hardware switcher is going to have lower latency almost always, and it's also going to be more reliable as far as knowing what that latency is. Every time you turn it on, it's going to be the same. As Mickey pointed out is that and also as pointed out by Roscoe in the chat, is when you can genlock your hardware switcher to all your cameras and all the devices and everything else, you're also going to get a lower latency because it's not having to frame sync those going in. So, and we do that a lot when we're trying to make sure that the screens, especially for iMac, are there. I wouldn't. So that latency is much more variable in software switchers. Software switchers give you a lot more flexibility. You can do a lot more with one machine. The cost of that is typically latency, frame reliability, stability. Those are all things that are a little less than, but they give you what they give you on the other side if you can figure out how to make that all work, which we have. And I use the software. So I use memolive for a variety of things. We use VisVector for our Monday shows. So there's lots of things that you can do. What we do is, but the hardware switchers, usually as soon as we're starting to get paid for it, big bucks, we usually move to hardware switch. I usually move to hardware switchers, although we saw a hardware switcher over the weekend go down. Not a Black Magic one either. so I won't mention the name because they are friends. But it went down in the middle of the show. So nothing is 100% stable.
If you enjoy and value what we do here, don't forget there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global. Join a great group of people who are studying all this stuff every single day and getting practical experience on it. You can become part of the team there. Or you can simply donate, officehours.global/donate. We'll get there, and that will help us out, and we appreciate it. Next question.
Henry Ramos in Yonkers, New York asks, settle a light argument, please, when wrapping cable over and under. Do you start with the XLR male or the XLR female?
Oh, endless discussion. Alex. I've never thought about it before. So there's the settlement. Like you're both right. Like as Mickey said, it depends on which connector you're closer to when you start wrapping.
If you wrap it right over and under, it doesn't matter. You toss it, it's still going to go out.
If you do it correctly, you should be able to just set it down on one side. It's more of like which side do you set it down on when you pull it out, because the key is to not pull it through. Right. Funny trick when I was growing up. that I knew a lot about. We did over under. I didn't realize that it was like we didn't call it over under. We just call it wrapping properly. Like or coiling properly for our rope. So when we did ropes, we always did over under because then it wouldn't tangle. But the other thing is, if you ever want to build a rope to climb up, you're wondering like how do you get knots at a perfect a cadence? Take a rope and go over under, pull the rope through the center, and pull it out, and it'll just make a knot at the same iteration as the diameter of your rope. And that's how you can make a climbing rope really quickly, in case you're wondering. But it's great for ropes. It is not great for cables because it's a knot at every coil. So anyway, that's the thing you have to worry about.
Oh, Ronnie, you want to add anything?
Yeah, we have had this discussion for years, and we tend to, I agree with Mickey as well, but when you are rigging down a stage and you're going to coil all these cables, where are you standing? Normally, everything is disconnected on the entire stage. Everything is disconnected. So all the female ends are spread out on the entire stage, which in some cases can be really, really big. And where are you standing when you start to get these coiled? You are sitting at the patch panel or the stage box, so to speak. And all those ends are male. So we tend to start coiling from the male end, but we have a standard in our company that the male is always going to be the one that is made a knot of. So at the end, when you coiled everything up, you turn the coil around, and then you tie the male end as the coiling or the lock kind of, if there is not used any other ways to connect it. So that is the standard in our company, and it is kind of most of the companies that we operate with is using the same strategy.
Another day, we should have a discussion of what you use at the end to wrap the final thing. Do you use zip ties? Do you use trick line? What is the best thing to secure the end of the cable? Well, that's another day. Next question.
Jeff Feely in Henderson, Texas asks, what are you using to effectively train your teams beyond hands-on experience? For example, Loom, Scribe, Zoom docs, SOPs, etc.
Alex.
To be honest, PDFs. Like we're sending out PDFs of an overview of how to do something. I think that it depends on what you're doing. For a lot of the stuff I do, it's mostly we just answer questions as we go. I mean, I will say that we're doing stuff oftentimes that there's not a lot of documentation. A lot of the stuff that we would have done normally with documentation now is so covered in ChatGPT for a lot of these things. That if you're trying to figure out something that someone's done before, you can figure it out. Otherwise, we've tried a lot of different things. Oftentimes, we have some documents that we're building in managing things that are moving. I will say that it's typically Google Docs, and the reason we do Google Docs is because we build what are called core docs, and that core doc has a list of all the different subjects that you need to know. You click on them, and it takes you to another doc that has the information, and sometimes that is documentation. Sometimes that is the crew list. Sometimes and the reason we do that going to different docs is because we control your access to those docs based on that. So you only get access to the one, like if you click on it and you don't have access, you can't get there. So a lot of those things are information control. We found Google Docs to be the least expensive, most effective. I do a lot of stuff in Airtable now, so I've been thinking about doing some of that stuff in Airtable, but right now it's still all Google Docs because we can shift gears between a Google Doc, a sheet, those presentation, all slides or whatever. So all of those things are there, but I would say the Google Docs is probably the most ubiquitous among production. We see it everywhere, and it's not because it's the best. It's just because everyone can use it. Everyone knows how to use it. It's a least common denominator across production.
Next question.
James Folson in Minneapolis, Minnesota asks, adding impromptu sound samples to a stream based on conversation going on seems hard to find and quickly present. How would you do this?
Alex?
I guess I'll tell you how to do it, and then I'll ask you whether you should do it. But anyway, so what you're looking for, the word you're looking for, as Richard Wells says in the thing, is a soundboard. So there's lots of different kinds of soundboards. One of the ones that I have is a what's called Farago from Rogue Amoeba. And so this is a piece of software, and you just tap on any of those, and all of those are there. So now you have this kind of heads-up display, and you can tie these to your Stream Deck or other things to play out. Mickey says a cart machine. Yeah, we used to, back in the day, a cart machine. A cart machine was an 8-track tape that you would put all the stuff on, and you could just hit the button and it would play. And so we should make a soundboard that's called cart.
Yeah, Cartomatic.
Anyway, so, Cartomatic. Yeah. Then we've now TM. Anyway, so
Birds for life.
Yeah. So typically there are lots of different soundboards that you can buy. Again, the one that I use, because I use a Mac and I like a Rogue Amoeba, is Farago. But you can find ones on iPads. But what you're searching for is a soundboard.
Yeah, the musicians use these a good little bit, the people who play synths and stuff like that, and you can just get a panel that has those 32 little buttons and put digital sounds behind them. And
I would say the way musicians use them are typically loops, and the way that I think he's talking about is like sound effects to drop stuff in. So it's oftentimes two different behaviors that you're doing. I will say, as a listener, wow, do I not like that. Like I just, I hate people adding stuff like that to their thing. So some people think it's great, but boy, I do not enjoy that when people put weird stuff into the show.
I've been actually using this is for recorded for post, not for live, but for post, there's a tool called Audio Design Desk that allows you to do all sorts of samples and trigger them in post for a timeline. I'm finding that really useful and learning more and more about that as I do these audio novels, because I have so many, I've got 30 gunshots I have to put in. I can program in 5 different types of gunshots and then tap them in as I listen back. That's really convenient. Jason, you had some thoughts?
Rogue Amoeba is still my favorite, but if you have a Stream Deck, you can drop an audio sample directly onto a button, and it will play anytime you push that button.
There you go. So Stream Deck. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, Ronnie, how do you like your CQ mixer?
Ronnie?
Well, so we have different types of them. We have the CQ12 and we have the CQ18. And the way we are using them is for compact streaming setup. So they are almost always put in a kind of a rack or fly pack kind of kit. And I also tend to have it on my desk, one of those, just to be sure that I know that everything in Office Hours is going to work well. So I'm not going to do this a very long discussion. It has some really cool features. Of course, it has. This is the CQ12. It has a very flexible channel assignment for the USB. You can see I have the main left-right sent out. I have 1 and 2 sent out, and I have the out 5 and 6, and I can change this. So I have kind of 6 different versions of USB going out. It also have an auto mixer, which we use all the time in panel debates and small conferences where we have more than 2 people sitting. It's kind of a really good audio guy on hand that automates everything. It has, of course, this is the CQ12 it has a kind of limited effects, but the processing is similar on both. We have the input gain. This is the SM7B coming in, so I gained it 60 dB. You have gating, which is kind of good to listen to. They are not that digital type of ones. You have the parametric equalizer, you have compressor settings, and I promise Mickey never to have this on when I'm on Office Hours. And you have configurable sends, and of course you have the normal faders. This is just the software interface, of course. And this one has 2 FX units, whereas the CQ18 and 20 have 4. And you can't purchase any additional effect types, but kind of sounding good. The only thing I'm kind of a little bit disappointed is not the input preamplifiers. It's kind of good. the headphone output is kind of bad. So it's connected to my computer now via USB-C, and I tend to listen to that signal instead of using the headphone output on the mixer itself. So that was a short demonstration of what I'm using it for.
As happens many days, we're not going to get to all your questions today. If you put them in through the Mukana system, they'll get sent back to you into your notes file. If you are on the Quick system, those will end up being carried over to tomorrow, so tune in tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who is a part of this show every day, to our producers for answering all the questions, or asking all the questions originally, so that the panelists can answer them. Those are two of our major constituencies, you producers and the people who show up here every day to answer your questions. And we never leave out the amazing back-end crew, those people working tirelessly in the back end, more people than you can imagine helping get this show on every day, and we've been doing it for close to 2,000 times. I think somewhere in the early part of September we hit 2,000. So thank you all, everyone who contributes to this every day. We really appreciate it. Our TOLOC Traversal today, the stats, if you were to go around and get these answers from people, you would have had to travel 36,000 miles. That's 59,000 kilometers and equals 289 million bananas for scale. We'll see you in After Hours and tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Come to think of it, I've never actually been to a set with bad food, probably because I would never return.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the music industry, and people take it seriously. And I should have taken pictures because it was like,
I bet it was amazing.
It was intense. Like, it was just so much and good, like good food. Like, it was good food. I had to suppress myself. So I was like, 2/3 of the plate have to be veggies. Because there's 3 choices of meat, and
it can be tough on set because you're working so hard. You get
the good news is
all of a
that
sudden
you're doing
like,
10 to 15,000 steps a day, so you're doing okay because you're walking around trying to figure stuff out.
Trick is not to ingest 10 to 15,000 calories in a plate.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My favorite question. My favorite answer is, "Oh, you wanted food as well?"
Yeah, exactly. All right, see you guys.
Thanks.